The twin suns of the alien world burned high in the sky, painting the rocks and cliffs in deep orange light. The air was heavy with the sound of drums. The Thryn tribe had gathered in the Valley of Fire, a place feared by all who lived nearby. Here stood the great stone pit, the home of the beast they worshipped. The Thryn were tall and scaled, their eyes narrow and glowing with pale light. They walked with pride, their armor made from the bones of creatures they had slain. For generations they had ruled this part of the world, not only by their own strength but also by the strength of their guardian, the beast known as Vorag. Vorag was no ordinary creature. It was said to be older than the oldest mountains. Its body was covered in scales harder than steel. Its wings spread wide enough to block the suns, and its breath carried fire hotter than molten rock. The Thryn believed the beast had chosen them long ago, and in return they gave it sacrifices. To keep the beast loyal, they fed it the living flesh of outsiders. The tribe believed that as long as the sacrifices continued, Vorag would guard them and destroy their enemies. Today was a special day. The drums beat faster and the people roared in excitement. A new offering was ready, but unlike the usual creatures or prisoners from nearby tribes, this time the offering was different. The Thryn had captured something rare, something they had never seen before, a human child. Her name was Mira. She was small, no older than 8 years, her dark hair tangled and her clothes torn from her capture. She had been taken from the wreck of a ship that had fallen from the sky only a few days earlier. The Thryn had never seen humans before. To them she was fragile and strange, with soft skin and wide eyes. But she was alive, and that was enough. The elders of the Thryn declared that Mira would be the perfect sacrifice. If the beast accepted her, it would be a sign that their bond with Vorag was stronger than ever. If it refused, then the child would simply die, and the tribe would still have their entertainment. Mira was dragged into the valley by 2 guards. The crowd of Thryn cheered and hissed, their voices rising like a storm. Some shouted for the beast to come. Others laughed at the sight of the trembling child. She tried to pull free, but their grip was too strong. Her small feet scraped across the stone, leaving tiny marks on the ground. The elders stood near the edge of the pit. One of them, an old scaled figure named Krath, raised his staff. The drum stopped at once. Silence spread across the valley. All eyes turned to the pit. Krath's voice rang out deep and powerful. Today we give our guardian a gift. Today we show our loyalty to Vorag, the flame of the sky. Let all see that the Thryn do not fear. Let all see that we are chosen. The crowd roared again. The guards pushed Mira to the edge. She stumbled forward and fell to her knees. She looked down into the pit and gasped. It was dark inside, lit only by the glow of firecracks in the rock. She could hear breathing, slow and heavy like the wind of a storm. She could see a shadow move, larger than anything she had ever imagined. Her small hands clutched the ground and her heart pounded so fast it hurt. The guards lifted her by her arms and threw her down into the pit. She cried out as she fell, the wind rushing past her ears, the world spinning until she landed hard on the rocky floor. Dust rose around her. Her knees scraped and bled, but she pushed herself up, trembling, her eyes wide. The shadow moved again. This time she saw it clearly. 2 golden eyes opened in the darkness, burning like suns. The ground shook as the beast stepped forward. Its scales glistened in the dim light, red and black like cooled lava. Its claws scraped the stone, leaving long marks. Its wings shifted, stirring the air with a sound like thunder. Vorag had awakened. The crowd above shouted in triumph. They beat their chests, they clashed their weapons, they called the beast's name. To them this was a holy moment, a moment to prove their power and faith. But to Mira, it was death. She backed away slowly, her small hands shaking. The dragon's gaze locked on her, its head lowered, smoke rising from its nostrils. The air grew hot, heavy, burning her throat. She wanted to scream, to call for help, but no one would help her. The Thryn wanted this. They wanted her gone. The beast stepped closer. Each step was like the fall of a mountain. Its body filled the pit, so large that Mira felt like an insect before it. Its teeth shone sharp as blades when it opened its mouth slightly, releasing a low growl that echoed across the valley. Above, the Thryn cheered louder. They expected the end to come quickly. To them, the child was nothing but a piece of food, a sacrifice to keep their guardian loyal. Mira pressed her back against the rock wall, her eyes full of tears. She whispered to herself, trying to stay brave. She remembered her mother's voice, soft and kind, telling her to be strong when she was afraid. But her mother was gone now, lost with the ship. Mira was alone. Voreg's head came closer. Its eyes burned brighter and its breath washed over her, hot and heavy. The beast sniffed her, the sound so loud it shook her chest. Its jaws opened wider, showing rows of fangs. The Thryn shouted above, eager for the final moment. Mira closed her eyes. The beast leaned closer still. The pit filled with the sound of its growl, deep and rumbling. The crowd reached its peak. The drums began again, and the elders lifted their arms in praise. And then the unexpected began. Mira opened her eyes slowly. The heat of Voreg's breath still brushed her face, and the shadow of its enormous head loomed over her. She expected pain, fire, or the terrible snap of jaws, but none came. Instead, the dragon-like creature paused. Its golden eyes studied her with a strange intensity. Mira's heart thumped in her chest. She swallowed the fear rising in her throat and took a tiny step back, careful not to anger the beast. Every muscle in her small body trembled. She whispered softly, more to herself than to Voreg. "Please, don't hurt me." The creature's eyes flicked to her lips. Mira's words were tiny, almost like a breath, yet the dragon seemed to understand. It lowered its massive head closer, tilting it as if curious. The crowd above gasped. Some of the Thryn cheered, thinking the dragon was about to attack. Others frowned, confused by the creature's hesitation. Voreg's claws dug into the stone floor as it circled Mira slowly. Each movement made the ground shake. Mira kept her eyes on its glowing eyes, refusing to look away. She noticed the scales were not only hard and sharp, but also glowing faintly in shades of red and black, like the embers of a fire. Its wings shifted slowly, stirring the air into waves that lifted her hair and made the pit feel even hotter. Still, it did not strike. Mira took a shaky breath. She remembered the small snack she had kept in her pocket, a bit of dried food she had managed to save during her escape. Trembling, she pulled it out and held it in front of her. "Here," she said softly. "You can have this." The creature paused. Its head lowered further, close enough for Mira to feel the heat radiating from its mouth. Voreg sniffed the offering. Mira could see the muscles in its jaw twitch. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air. For a moment, everything was silent except for Mira's own rapid breathing. The Thryn above roared, banging their weapons and shouting. They wanted the beast to attack. Some yelled at the elders to hurry the ritual, but the elders only stood in shock, unable to command the creature that had never shown hesitation before. Voreg's clawed paw moved toward Mira. She froze, expecting the worst. But instead of striking, it tapped the ground beside her gently. The movement was slow, careful, deliberate. Mira blinked in surprise. It doesn't want to hurt me," she whispered. Voreg sniffed the food again and then, with a careful motion, took it gently from her hand with its claw. Mira flinched but did not pull back. The creature seemed to sense her fear and reacted with patience. The crowd above grew louder. Some Thryn yelled for the ritual to continue. Others watched in disbelief. Many had never seen Voreg act this way. It was supposed to be fierce and unyielding, a force of destruction that obeyed only the Thryn. But here it was, accepting an offering from the very thing it was meant to destroy. Mira felt a flicker of hope. She stayed calm and crouched low, speaking softly to Voreg as she would to a frightened animal. "You don't have to hurt me," she said. "I'm not your enemy." The beast's eyes seemed to soften. Its tail swished slowly across the floor, stirring dust and small stones. Mira noticed its breathing had slowed, becoming more even. She realized that it might actually be thinking, considering, deciding what to do. Suddenly, a small Thryn boy in the crowd shouted, "Attack! The child is weak." The others laughed. Mira felt a spike of fear. The Thryn guards at the edge of the pit gripped their weapons tighter. She saw the elders tense, ready to intervene if the beast did not obey. Voreg turned its head toward the sound but made no move to attack. Instead, it stood taller, spreading its wings slightly, creating a shadow that covered Mira. It was as if the creature were warning the Thryn not to interfere. Mira's heart leapt. She realized that Voreg might be protecting her. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "I won't hurt you either." The dragon lowered its massive head closer, now so near that Mira could feel the heat on her cheeks. Its golden eyes blinked slowly, observing her every movement. Then, with surprising delicacy, it nudged her shoulder lightly with its snout. Mira flinched but smiled. She reached out a small hand to touch the scales. They were warm but rough, like polished stone. She could feel the power of the creature beneath her fingers. The Thrinn above began to murmur in confusion. Some shouted in alarm, but the elders called for silence. Krath, the oldest elder, raised his staff. It is not obeying, he said, voice trembling. The beast, it is thinking. The crowd gasped. Never before had Vorag refused an offering. To the Thrinn, this was unthinkable. Their guardian, their protector, their weapon of fear was showing mercy. Mira took another small step forward. She looked into the dragon's eyes and spoke again. I will not fight you. I will not hurt you, please. Understand me. Vorag shifted its massive body, lowering its head even closer. Its tongue flicked at the air again. Mira could smell its warmth, the scent of fire and stone. It was alive in a way she had never imagined, aware and intelligent. Suddenly, Vorag's tail lashed across the ground, knocking over a rock. The sound was loud, like a small explosion. Mira jumped but held her ground. The creature then curled its tail gently around her, almost as if it were creating a safe space. The Thrinn crowd gasped again. Murmurs turned to whispers. Some of the younger members of the tribe exchanged looks of wonder. Perhaps this was a sign, a message they had not understood before. Mira knelt on the ground and spoke softly. I am not afraid. You are strong, but you don't have to fight me. We can be friends. Vorag's eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger. It seemed to consider her words. Then, with a slow and careful movement, it lowered its head to Mira's level. The air was scorching and small sparks rose from its nostrils, but it did not attack. Mira reached out again, touching the warm scales. The creature leaned into her touch, a low rumble vibrating from its chest. It was almost like a purr, a sound Mira had never heard before. She felt a connection, a moment of understanding passing between them. Above, the elders were silent. Krath's hand shook as he lowered his staff. The Thrinn had never seen the beast act like this. Some of the young warriors whispered that maybe the stories of Vorag choosing its companions were true, but they had always been told these were legends. Mira continued to offer small pieces of food. Each time, Vorag accepted them gently. Slowly, she realized that the dragon was not only sparing her life, but beginning to trust her. Hours seemed to pass in moments. Mira could feel the tension in the pit easing, the heat from Vorag's body calming, the rumbling growls softening into something almost like breathing. Then a sound broke through the quiet. A Thrinn elder shouted, alarmed and angry. Do not let it choose. Kill the child now. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some of the Thrinn raised weapons, ready to force the ritual to its end. Mira froze, unsure if this was the final moment, but Vorag reacted. With a single sweep of its massive wings, it created a gust of wind so strong that many of the Thrinn were thrown back. Their weapons clattered to the stone. The dragon's roar shook the valley, a warning that it would not be forced. Mira clung to the ground, holding her breath, and watched as the beast towered protectively over her. It was clear now that Vorag had made a choice. It would not harm her. It would defend her, the Thrinn murmured in fear. Their guardian, their weapon, their legend had chosen a human child over them. This was something they had never seen before. Some of the younger Thrinn stared in awe. Others whispered that perhaps the old ways were wrong. Mira felt her small chest swell with relief. She smiled, knowing she had survived the first test. But she also knew that the Thrinn would not give up easily. They would try again, and she would need all the courage she could find. She looked up at Vorag. The creature lowered its massive head once more, smoke rising from its nostrils. It seemed to be asking something, a question only Mira could answer. I will be your friend, she said softly. I will not hurt you. Together we can be safe. The dragon's eyes blinked slowly and a low rumble vibrated through the pit. Mira felt the warmth of its body and the power of its presence. She knew that in this moment she had gained something extraordinary. She had not only survived, but had begun to form a bond with the creature that everyone had feared. The Thrinn above watched in stunned silence. The ritual had failed in the way none could have imagined. The sacrifice had become something more. The child was no longer just prey. She had begun to awaken a power that the Thrinn had never seen before. And Mira, small and fragile though she was, had taken the first step in a journey that would change not only her life, but the fate of the alien world itself. The sun was high above the valley, and the twin shadows of the Thrinn's cliff stretched across the rocky ground. Mira remained in the pit, her small hands resting on Vorag's warm scales. The massive creature had calmed, no longer growling or moving restlessly. Its golden eyes followed every motion she made, almost as if it were learning her thoughts. Above, the Thryn elders huddled in concern. Krath, the oldest among them, pounded his staff against the stone in frustration. "It is impossible," he said, voice trembling. "The child, the beast, it obeys nothing," the younger Thryn warriors whispered among themselves. Some were afraid. Others were fascinated. None had ever seen Vorag behave this way. For centuries, the beast had been their tool of fear. Now it was clear it had a mind of its own. Mira noticed the whispers. Her heart raced. She had survived the first moments, but the Thryn would not accept defeat so easily. She needed to keep the dragon calm and prove that she meant no harm. "Vorag," she whispered softly, running her fingers along a ridge of glowing scales. "I will not hurt you. You are strong. You are safe with me." The dragon shifted slightly, lowering its massive head to her level. Mira could feel the heat from its breath, and yet she was not afraid. Somehow she knew it trusted her. Just a little, and that trust was enough. Slowly, Mira began to move around the pit, careful not to startle Vorag. She offered the little food she had kept hidden. Each time Vorag accepted it gently, its claws precise and careful. The creature's behavior amazed her. She realized that it was not just sparing her life. It was communicating, showing patience, and even understanding kindness. The Thryn above grew restless. The elders barked orders. "Force it! Do not allow this!" one shouted, but the younger Thryn hesitated. Some of them had seen the way Vorag reacted to the child and were no longer certain they could control it. They muttered doubts among themselves, questioning the old ways. Mira noticed this. Even from her place in the pit, she could feel the balance of power shifting. Hours passed. Mira spoke softly to Vorag, telling it stories of her home, of the stars she had seen from the wrecked ship. The dragon's massive head turned to follow her every movement. Its breathing was steady. No longer a threat, but a rhythm she could sense. With each word, each gesture of care, the bond between them strengthened. Then a sudden sound broke the calm. A Thryn warrior climbed to the edge of the pit, holding a long spear. He meant to push the ritual to its end. Mira froze. Her heart thudded painfully. But before the warrior could act, Vorag lifted its head and emitted a low growl that shook the air. The ground trembled beneath the Thryn, and the warrior slipped back, fear gripping him. Vorag's wings rose slowly, casting a shadow over the pit and warning all intruders. Mira's fear mixed with awe. She realized the creature would defend her, not with mindless violence, but with careful power. The elder Krath shouted, furious, "Do not allow the child to bend our guardian. Kill her if you must!" But the Thryn hesitated. Vorag's calm strength was undeniable. Its presence alone had changed the mood of the crowd. Even some of the older Thryn whispered among themselves. For the first time, the legend of the dragon choosing its companion seemed real. Mira moved closer to Vorag, speaking softly. "I will help you. I will be your friend. You don't have to fight." The dragon lowered its massive body, allowing her to stand beside it. Its head brushed against hers gently, a gesture Mira had never imagined possible from such a fearsome creature. Her small hand rested on the scales of its neck, and she felt warmth, power, and intelligence. Something extraordinary happened. Vorag made a sound that was not a growl, not a roar, but a low musical vibration. Mira tilted her head, realizing it was communicating. She repeated her words softly, encouraging it, and the vibration responded almost like a reply. For a moment, the world outside the pit disappeared. There was only Mira and the dragon, two beings forming a connection neither fully understood but both recognized as real. Above, the Thryn murmured in disbelief. Some whispered that the beast had never chosen a companion in centuries. Others feared that the child had somehow tamed what was thought to be unstoppable. The elders tried to regain control, but the momentum had shifted. Vorag was no longer an instrument of obedience. It was a creature with a mind, and it had chosen Mira. The younger warriors began to see what the elders refused to admit. Fear of the dragon had ruled their lives, but now they realized that strength was not only in fire and claws. Kindness and courage could command loyalty as well. They whispered among themselves, unsure what to do. Meanwhile, Mira found her courage growing. Each time she spoke softly, offered food, or touched the dragon's scales, she felt a small power within herself. It was as if her kindness was strengthening the bond, giving her a presence even in the face of the Thryn's numbers. The elders grew desperate. They began shouting, demanding that the child be removed from the pit. They tried to lure Vorag away with meat and fire, but the dragon ignored them. Its eyes never left Mira. Its massive body shifted slightly, shielding her from any threat. A murmur of fear ran through the crowd. The Thrinn had always relied on Vorag to maintain order. If the creature refused, what power did the elders truly hold? Some young warriors looked at Mira with admiration. Perhaps the child had unlocked something long forgotten, a bond that had been impossible until now. Mira noticed the fear in the eyes of the elders. She understood that they could still try to take her by force, but she also knew that Vorag would not allow it. The dragon's presence was commanding yet calm. It was not attacking, but it was protective in a way that no one could challenge. She knelt beside the dragon and rested her head against its side. Its heat was intense but comforting. She whispered, "We are safe together. You will not let them hurt me." Vorag responded with a soft vibration, almost like a nod. Mira smiled, feeling a wave of relief. She had survived the first challenge and had begun forming a bond that neither fear nor force could break. Then, something unexpected happened. A Thrinn elder, braver or perhaps more desperate than the others, stepped forward, raising a weapon to strike. Mira's heart leapt. Vorag shifted, its massive body rising slightly, wings stretching wide to shield her. The elder froze, realizing that the creature would not allow harm to come to her. The younger Thrinn whispered among themselves. The stories were true. The dragon had chosen a companion, and the companion was not one of them. It was a fragile human child. For the first time, the Thrinn began to doubt their rituals, their power, and even their understanding of the world. Mira remained calm, her hands resting on Vorag's scales, speaking softly to keep the creature steady. She had survived the initial test, but the real challenge was only beginning. The elders shouted again, trying to regain control, but Vorag's patience and strength made it clear that the bond with Mira was real and unbreakable. The dragon would defend the child, and the Thrinn could do nothing but watch in awe and fear. Mira realized that the bond she had formed was extraordinary. She was no longer just a child in a pit. She was part of something powerful, something older and wiser than the Thrinn themselves. She could feel Vorag's intelligence and strength, and she knew that together they could face anything. As the suns climbed higher, the Thrinn slowly retreated, murmuring among themselves. Their guardian had chosen, and their control had failed. Mira stood tall beside Vorag, small yet brave, united with a creature of fire and stone. The bond had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The Thrinn elders met at the edge of the valley, their scales glinting under the twin suns. Krath's hands shook as he pounded his staff against the stone. The ritual had failed, the child had survived, and the guardian had chosen her. For centuries the Thrinn had ruled by fear, but now their power was uncertain. "We cannot allow this," Krath said, voice sharp. "The child has no place beside Vorag. She is fragile. She is not ours. If she remains, the balance is broken." The younger warriors listened in silence. Some felt fear, some curiosity, but none dared speak too loudly. They had seen what happened in the pit. Vorag, the great beast of legend, had protected the child with care and precision. No Thrinn weapon had even scratched its scales. Mira remained in the pit, standing beside Vorag. The dragon lowered its massive head so she could touch it. The warmth from its body was comforting, yet she felt the immense power beneath her fingertips. Every heartbeat of the creature was steady and strong. It was alive in a way that made her realize she had found a friend and a protector unlike any other. Above, the Thrinn prepared again. They had brought new weapons and strategies. They would not give up. Some carried nets made from strong metal threads. Others had devices that could produce loud sounds meant to startle and control the beast. Yet even as they approached, Vorag's golden eyes followed every movement. It was calm yet ready. It did not attack, but it would not allow harm. Mira whispered softly to the dragon. "They want to stop us, but I will stay with you. We can face them together." The dragon responded with a low rumble that vibrated through the pit. Mira felt it like a heartbeat she could match with her own courage. She had learned something incredible. Fear did not control strength. Kindness, bravery, and understanding could create loyalty stronger than fear. The Thrinn approached the edge of the pit cautiously. Krath raised his staff, signaling for action. A young warrior leaped forward, swinging a net over the dragon's head. Vorag's wings rose in an instant, stirring the air into a powerful gust that knocked the warrior off balance. The net fell uselessly to the ground. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen the beast move with such precision. It was not a mindless force. It was intelligent, aware, and fully in control. Mira took a step closer to Vorag, her hand resting on its scales. "You don't have to fight them if you don't want," she said. "We can protect ourselves together." The dragon's head tilted slightly and a low vibration rumbled from its chest. Mira understood it as a sign of agreement. Together they were strong. Krath's voice grew louder. "Do not let the child bend the will of Vorag. She is not one of us. Strike now before it is too late." The Thrinn launched a coordinated attack. Spears flew toward the pit. Devices screeched with high-pitched sound. Some warriors tried to climb down ropes to grab the child. Mira's heart pounded, but she stayed close to Vorag. The dragon acted with calm authority. Its massive wings created walls of wind that knocked weapons aside. Its tail lashed the ground, making stone fly like small stones from a giant catapult. Every move was measured, designed to protect, not destroy. Mira realized something remarkable. Vorag was not merely fighting for her. It was teaching her, showing her how power could be used wisely. She reached up and placed both hands on its head. The heat was intense, but she felt connected, as if the dragon could sense her courage and determination. The younger Thrinn warriors hesitated. They had grown up fearing the beast, yet now they watched a child stand beside it without fear. Some whispered among themselves that perhaps the old ways were wrong. Perhaps fear was not the true measure of strength. Krath grew desperate. He barked orders, tried to push the younger warriors forward, and even attempted to lure Vorag away with fire. But the beast ignored all of it. Its attention remained entirely on Mira and the threat of harm from the Thrinn. Mira spoke softly to Vorag. "They do not understand, but we do. Together we can show them another way." Vorag's eyes glimmered. Its massive body shifted, bringing its wings closer around her. The sheer size and presence of the creature created a shield of air and heat. The Thrinn could not reach her. Their weapons were useless. The crowd grew uneasy. Murmurs turned to fearful whispers. They had worshipped and feared this creature for centuries. Now it was clear that the Thrinn were no longer in control. The dragon had chosen, and it had chosen a human child. Some of the younger warriors began to step back, unsure if they wanted to challenge the guardian. Mira noticed this. Even though she was small and fragile, she could feel the shift in power. Vorag and she together were more than the Thrinn had ever imagined. Krath, however, would not relent. He raised his staff high, shouting for the elders and warriors to attack in unison. He believed that sheer numbers and force could break the bond. He could not see that trust and courage were stronger than fear and weapons. Mira's eyes met Vorag's. She placed her small hand on its glowing scales and whispered words of encouragement. The dragon's massive head lowered, smoke curling from its nostrils, and a low musical vibration filled the pit. Mira felt it in her chest. She knew it was calm, ready, and aware. Then, in a sudden moment of clarity, Vorag moved. Its tail swept the ground with precise control, knocking the weapons from the hands of several warriors. Its wings spread fully, creating a dome of air and heat that made it impossible for the Thrinn to climb into the pit. The young child's voice was steady, confident. "We can be safe. You cannot hurt us if you try to use fear. We are not your enemies." The elders froze. Their own fear had trapped them in disbelief. No child had ever commanded the guardian, and yet here was Mira, not with force but with courage and calm. Some younger Thrinn began to step forward slowly, intrigued. They whispered to each other that maybe the old ways had been wrong. Perhaps obedience and fear were not the only way to control power. They watched as Mira and Vorag remained calm yet ready, prepared to protect themselves against any aggression. Krath's hands shook with rage and disbelief. He could not comprehend what was happening. For centuries he had controlled the dragon through fear, and now a child had done what he could not. He roared, demanding obedience, but Vorag's eyes did not leave Mira. Its body was steady, protective, and intelligent. Mira felt a surge of confidence. She realized that the dragon's trust in her was not blind. It responded to her courage, her calmness, and her understanding. Together they were more powerful than any weapon the Thrinn could throw. The sun rose higher, casting shadows across the valley. The Thrinn elders began to retreat slowly, their confidence shaken. The younger warriors looked on in awe. The legend of the dragon and its chosen companion had come alive. Mira knelt beside Vorag, her hands tracing the warm scales of its neck. "We did it," she whispered. "We stayed calm. We stayed together. They cannot stop us. The dragon responded with a gentle rumble, a vibration that echoed through the ground. Mira smiled, knowing that the bond was growing stronger. The Thrinn could try again, but they would never have the loyalty, intelligence, or connection that she and Vorag shared. The valley was quiet now, except for the sound of the dragon's breathing and the murmurs of the Thrinn above. Mira felt a sense of triumph, but also a deeper understanding. The challenge was not over. The Thrinn would return, but she was no longer just a child. She was part of something extraordinary, something that could change the fate of this alien world. For the first time, Mira understood the true meaning of strength. It was not in fire, claws, or weapons. It was in courage, in calmness, and in trust. And with Vorag by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. The bond between child and guardian had awakened. The Thrinn could try to stop it, but nothing could break the connection that had formed in the pit of fire and stone. Mira and Vorag were ready to face the world together. The twin suns were high above the valley as Mira stood beside Vorag. The dragon's golden eyes scanned the cliffs, alert to any sign of movement. The Thrinn elders were not finished. They had gathered more warriors, more weapons, and more plans. But Mira no longer felt the helplessness she had felt when she first fell into the pit. She had grown, and she was no longer alone. Vorag, she whispered, placing her small hands on its glowing scales. They cannot hurt us if we stand together. We are strong. The dragon rumbled in response, a deep vibration that Mira felt in her chest. It was calm, intelligent, and ready. Together they were a force that the Thrinn had never faced before. Above the valley, the Thrinn formed ranks. Spears, ropes, and strange devices gleamed in the sunlight. They were determined. The elders had decided that if they could not force obedience through fear, they would try with numbers and strategy. Krath, the oldest elder, raised his staff high. "Strike now! Do not allow this child to bend our guardian," he shouted, but the Thrinn warriors hesitated. They had seen the bond between Mira and Vorag. They had seen the patience, the intelligence, and the protection. Fear had always guided their lives, but now courage was standing in front of them. A child and a dragon. Mira felt a surge of determination. She stepped forward, her voice strong. "You cannot stop us. We will not fight to hurt you, but we will defend ourselves. We are together and we are not afraid." Vorag shifted, its massive wings spreading wide, creating a wall of heat and wind that blocked any approach. Its claws dug into the rocky floor with precision, knocking weapons aside without harming the Thrinn unnecessarily. The dragon's presence was commanding yet careful. The Thrinn realized they could not simply attack. Their strategies failed before the calm, intelligent power of Vorag. Some warriors began to step back, uncertain if they wanted to challenge a creature that had chosen a human child over them. Krath's face was pale under his scales. He could not understand it. For centuries he had ruled by fear. Now the child had shown him another form of power, trust, courage, and patience. Mira spoke again, softly but clearly. "We do not want to fight, but if you try to hurt us, Vorag will defend me. You will see that strength does not come from fear alone." The dragon rumbled deeply, its massive body shifting to place itself between Mira and the Thrinn. Sparks rose from its nostrils as its golden eyes glimmered with intelligence. Mira reached up to touch its snout, feeling warmth and trust. The dragon had chosen her, and she had chosen it. Suddenly, a group of Thrinn tried to climb into the pit with ropes. Vorag's tail lashed out, knocking them back with careful force. It did not strike to kill, only to protect. Mira moved quickly, staying close to the dragon, guiding it with gentle words. "Steady," she whispered. "We can do this together." The younger Thrinn warriors began to step away, unsure of their loyalty to the elders. They had seen what Mira and Vorag could do. Some whispered to each other that perhaps fear was not the only way to lead. Others simply watched, awed by the bond they saw forming. Krath bellowed, demanding obedience, but his voice seemed to carry no power. Vorag's gaze remained fixed on Mira, ignoring the threats above. It was clear now that the dragon would not obey fear. It had chosen a companion, and that companion was a human child. Mira climbed onto a small rock beside Vorag. She looked up at the elders and warriors, her voice ringing out. "You cannot stop what is real. Vorag has chosen me and I have chosen it. We are not enemies. We are together." The Thrinn hesitated. They had never faced such courage. Their guardian had chosen someone they did not understand. Some young warriors began to step back, unwilling to challenge the child and the dragon, The elders looked furious, but their anger had no weight against the bond in the pit. Then a sound of clashing weapons echoed across the valley. A Thryn elder tried to use fire devices to scare the dragon. Vorag's wings rose, creating a gust so strong that the devices fell apart. The elder stumbled backward, afraid. Mira reached up to Vorag's head, whispering encouragement. The dragon lowered its head slightly, allowing her to touch its scales as if showing that the power of trust and courage was stronger than fear or destruction. The crowd grew quiet. Even Krath's shouts became muffled in the face of the calm authority of the dragon. Mira stood tall, small yet unafraid, beside the creature that had become her protector. Vorag moved gently, nudging her forward. Mira realized that the dragon wanted her to lead, not to hide. Together they stepped toward the edge of the pit. The Thryn elders looked on, powerless as their centuries-old control began to crumble. A young Thryn warrior stepped forward hesitantly. This is not right, he said quietly. The child has not harmed us. The dragon is not attacking. Maybe we should listen, Krath growled, furious. Do not listen. She is not one of us. Mira raised her voice, steady and firm. I am not your enemy. You do not need to fear me. You do not need to harm me. Look at Vorag. See what we can be if we are brave, if we trust, if we act with care instead of fear. The Thryn warriors froze. Some began to lower their weapons. Others whispered to each other, considering the words. Mira felt the shift in their hearts. Courage and trust had begun to change the minds of even those who had ruled for centuries. Vorag's wings shifted, and the heat from its body washed over the Thryn without harming them. The dragon did not attack blindly. It only moved to protect Mira, showing restraint and intelligence. The guardianship was not a weapon. It was a bond. Krath shouted again, but his words had lost their power. Mira realized something incredible. The balance of the world was shifting. The guardianship of the dragon was not about fear. It was about understanding, courage, and loyalty. With a gentle rumble, Vorag moved closer to Mira. The two of them stood together, a child and a massive dragon, calm yet commanding. The Thryn began to see that nothing could break this bond. It was stronger than any weapon, stronger than fear. One by one, the younger Thryn warriors lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with awe. Even some elders began to step back, realizing that the legends were true. Vorag had chosen its companion, and that companion had survived the trial with courage and calm. Mira took a deep breath. She had learned to trust the dragon, and now she needed to show the Thryn that power could be wielded differently. We do not need to fight, she said. We can show you another way. Fear is not the only path. Courage, understanding, and trust can be stronger than any weapon. The valley was silent, except for the sound of the dragon's breathing. Vorag lowered its massive head to Mira's level, smoke curling from its nostrils. Mira reached up and placed her hand on its snout. She felt the warmth and intelligence of the creature beneath her fingers. For the first time, the Thryn understood something they had never considered. Strength was not only in fire, claws, or weapons. True strength could come from trust, courage, and the ability to protect without destroying. Krath's face paled under his scales. His authority had crumbled not with fire or violence, but with the quiet courage of a child and the loyalty of a guardian. He stepped back, unable to act. The younger warriors began to cheer softly, whispering to each other that perhaps the world could be different. They saw the bond between Mira and Vorag and realized that fear was not the only way to rule. Mira climbed onto a rock beside Vorag, standing tall despite her small size. We are not enemies, she said again. We are together. You do not need to fear, and you do not need to fight. We can all be safe if we choose trust and courage. The dragon rumbled deeply, a sound that vibrated through the ground and hearts alike. The Thryn could feel the truth in it. The guardian had chosen, and the child had proven her courage. The balance of power had shifted. The elders slowly retreated, realizing that their control had ended. The younger Thryn looked on, amazed and inspired. Mira and Vorag had not only survived, but they had changed the world in 30 minutes. Mira smiled, looking up at Vorag. We did it, she whispered. We stayed together. We stayed brave, and nothing can stop us now. The dragon lowered its head gently, nudging her as if to say yes. Mira placed her hands on its massive scales, feeling the warmth, power, and intelligence that made her realize they were no longer alone. They had faced fear, and together, They had transformed it into courage. The valley was quiet, peaceful, and alive with the sense of change. The Thrin had witnessed something extraordinary. The human child had survived what no one expected. The dragon had chosen a companion of courage and trust. The legends had come true, and a new story of strength and hope had begun. Mira stood beside Vorag, small but brave, the chosen rider of the dragon. Together they looked out across the valley, ready to face whatever came next. The Thrin had learned a lesson that would last generations. Power was not only in fire and fear, but in courage, loyalty, and the bonds we choose. The unexpected had happened, and the world would never be the same.